Hello everyone. Today is November 29, 2025, Saturday after Black Friday, and welcome to another episode of me grinding LeetCode 205 Isomorphic Strings. So two strings are determined to be isomorphic. The rule is basically if one character can map to another character consistently, they are isomorphic. And there's other special rules like node to character may map to the same character, but the character can map to itself, meaning if it's a E and after the mapping is still E, that's fine. But this one, E maps to A and G maps to D, so all the mapping are consistent. So this is isomorphic strings. These are isomorphic strings. And then example 2, so F map to B and O map to A, and O should map to A consistently, but it map to R, then this violates the rule. So this is not isomorphic string. And for example 3, so you see the mapping is consistent like P to T, A to I, so still P to T, E to L, and then R to E. So I guess we should be able to just use like a dictionary, should be able to solve this issue. Okay, so before we begin, let's do some accounting first there. So if S, there's no X and no T, then we can return true. That means both of them are empty. And then if the length of S does not equal to the length of T, then they're false. And if non-S or non-T, that means just one of them are empty, then it's apparently false. And now if equal to line 7, that means both of them are not empty and have some sort of like length there. So their length should equal to each other. If the length doesn't equal to each other, then it's empty. And then we find out the length. Just use one of them because they're all the same. And then we initialize a mapping to be an empty dictionary. And then for I in range of L, if like a S of I not in mapping, so this is a new mapping, then we need to add it to it. So the mapping of like S of I should equal to T of I. And then that's the else case. If if it can go to else, that means S of I is inside the mapping. And if S of I, like mapping of S of I does not equal to T of I, that means we found something, a use case that the mapping is inconsistent. Then we return false. But if we finish the loop, we don't find any like a violation, then we return true. So I think in this case, probably we can simplify a little bit, like this just called elif. So if the mapping is new, we add to the mapping. And if the mapping is not new, and we find a conflict, then we raise the error, return false. And then if we don't find any false case, then those two strings should be isomorphic. Let's run the test. Yep, we pass the small test and submit. Okay, so let's see what's going on. So we determine this to be true, but it should be F. So B map to B, A map to A, D map to B, and C map to A. Okay, so I think it violates a rule. Let's go back to the description. It kind of violates the rule that no two characters can map to the same character. So how do we handle this case? So that's the most reasonable answer. Basically, this is like D map to B and B map to B. So in this case, like we should determine, do we need a reverse mapping here? So we have a forward mapping currently. And then maybe we should have like a reverse mapping. So we're adding the mapping and then the reversed ti equals so if the mapping is new, then we add it to the forward mapping and also the reverse mapping. And then here probably we need an else instead. So first we check the forward mapping. If the forward mapping is not consistent, then we raise an error. And here, if the reverse mapping of ti, so if ti is already in the reverse mapping, is already in use, then we should return false. And we set the forward mapping and we set the reverse mapping. So, okay, let me go through this one more time. So for each character, each position of the character, if we find a new forward mapping, and then first of all, we're gonna find if the target, so the target of I, if it's already used, it's already mapped by another character. So we cannot add that. That we return false there. But if like no, the target character is available, then we can add the forward mapping, like the source map to the target, because it's a new source. And then we also like a reverse mapping to check back to like the source there. And then if it's not like a new source, so the source is already there, then without an inconsistency, we return false. So let's do a small test. Okay, you can pass the big text. Okay, you can also test. So I think it might be a little bit overkill. So this works just for the reverse mapping, but like maybe a little bit overkill to map it back to the source there. So I think for the minimum thing, maybe we can just say it is set. And then we can like just reverse mapping, add this added this like a target to it, and we don't need this. So this should also work. If it's not used, if it's already used, then return false. And then the user added to it. Let me try this. Yeah, it's still working. Yep, so let me clean up a little bit. So we can just rename the reverse mapping to be used. So substitute reverse mapping to be like a target used G. Okay, here you go. Okay, so that's another solution. Like if we want to use like a reverse mapping using dictionary, that works. But if we just want to use a set, that will also work. So that means the target character is already being used there. So when we find new mapping, we need to check if it is really like available. If it's not available, that means there's already another character mapped to this target character, so we return false. But if it doesn't, then you can just like add the forward mapping and then mark the target character to be already used there for the next round of check there. But if like the source character is already inside the mapping, then we need to check if the mapping is consistent. If it's not consistent, that's false. Then after the for loop, if we don't find any case that violates the rules, then we can just return true. So just to run it one more time, small test, pass, the big test. Okay, everything passed.